New Thought Media Network proudly presents Lindsay Leimbach, Practicing Infinite Possibilities, Fridays at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. And now, here's Lindsay.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to PIP, Practicing Infinite Possibilities. Let me get my little sign up there. Here, let me get Buster up with and say hello to. Hello. So, welcome. What is practicing infinite possibilities? It's the idea and the understanding that there's infinite possibilities that you can create right now, but it takes practice. It takes practice. So today, what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about how do I actually do the practice? How do I actually create infinite possibilities for my highest and authentic self? And I really do that with the understanding of basic Buddhism, I realized. So we're going to get there. But before we get there, I want everyone to remember, what did we talk about last week? Do you remember? Last week, we talked about take a knee and drink water, right? When the police officer who got sworn in used to be in the army, he said that his philosophy, when I watched everyone get sworn in, he said, take a knee and drink water. And that was so profound to me because I was so excited that in the army is where he learned that, and then he was carrying it off into the police force, is mindfulness. And that's what I am. I'm a mindfulness coach. And mindfulness coaching and mindfulness living is the ability to take that sacred pause. I think Shay said that. She said, that's a sacred pause to me. And that's exactly what it is. That sacred pause. Instead of having that reactionary mind, you take that sacred pause. And then what is drink water? Of course, we all should be drinking a lot of water because it flushes out our toxins within our body. But really what it's talking about is self-care. Because a lot of times in a reaction, when we go into that reactionary mode, we want to solve the problems on the outside, but we have no reflection on the inside. And then the same problems happen over and over and over again. The relationships stay stagnant. They still have that angst into it, or that feeling, gosh, who here is like, has a coworker that they have difficulty with, and I just don't want to deal with that. You know what I mean? Or you have a dilemma with your children, or you have a dilemma even in your own health, and you go into denial or distract, discount, you go into all these old mechanisms, and it doesn't solve the problem. The problem is still there. So when we talk about mindful living, it's really about taking a knee, being in the present moment, stop, be in the present moment, look around with a non-judgmental mind, because we're going to drink water, we're going to do self-care. Where does this really originate from? Where does this originate from? From inside. From inside. How you react to the world is your responsibility. You can't necessarily change the world, but you can change reaction. And that's what take a knee, drink water is about. So I just love that. So that was episode 47, because I think we're on 48 now. So feel free to go back into YouTube, on mine, Lindsay Leimbach, Centeredmoment, or go back into New Thought Media Network. So, all right, if you're here, give me a hello in the comments so I know. I know that my parents are listening, but they're traveling. And I believe Shay is with us today. And I believe that Gabby on the East Coast is with us. So I'm happy to have you all, and welcome. I want to go into our hearts, because we've talked about priming the mind, and priming the mind to see the good, to see the heart. And I got some great ones. Look at this one. Is that awesome? Shay sent me this. She said it's just down the street from her. It's this fabulous tree. You see that beautiful heart in that tree? Wow. Wow, that is so awesome. So we want to be able to see the hearts around in our neighborhood. In our neighborhood. Trudy, hey, thanks for saying hi. I'm so glad you're here. I know she's in California, Trudy. So let me show you some more. Let's see, go back to my banners. Check this one out. This is my one my friend sent me from Fiji. Is that so beautiful? She's walking down the path, and at the resort in Fiji, they made this beautiful heart. Wow, so beautiful. And here is my friend from Stacy. She always sees them in her food. Look at that. I love that. Can you be at a meal and be grateful and see hearts in your food? Can you bring that consciousness of love instead of thinking of all the things that are wrong in this world or all the things that you should do or must do? Can you tune in and prime your mind to say, hey, I want to see pleasure. I want to see love. I want to see have gratitude, even in our meals. And oh, I realized I didn't put another one up. Next week, I have a really cool necklace that my girlfriend sent us. So I'm going to show you that of this American United States flag heart. And it was so cool. But I realized I didn't program it. I want to show you this heart. Is that pretty? You know who took that one? I did. I took that one. And you know what that red heart on the beach is? It's actually a plastic heart I got at the 99-cent store. And it's our doggy dish bowl that we carry around for the doggies to put water in. And we were at the beach and the sun was setting. And I looked at the bowl and I thought, oh, there's a heart. And then I thought, wow, I can put this and get this shadow. Isn't that gorgeous? I actually love this one so much that I made it into a wall poster. You know how you can order them? It just makes me so happy. So keep sending me the hearts. I think it's really cool to know that people all over the world that are watching the show are priming their mind to see hearts in every aspect, because what we are doing is we're allowing ourselves to say to us. Instead of seeing anger and instead of seeing, suffering, let's see love. Let's see kindness. Yes, do we have to deal with the negativity in the world? Absolutely. But can we do it from kindness? Can you meet someone else's suffering from kindness, not meeting it with suffering or denial or disgust or pity? You don't want that. You want to meet it with kindness. And we need to program our mind, be centered in, I'm going to take this day, whatever way it is, with allowing good things, with the viewing of what is the highest. And when I get triggered, to own my trigger, okay? So it's not that you don't get triggered, but to own it and then take a breath, take a knee, drink some water and shift and say, what can I learn? What can I learn from this trigger? And then what can I grow from it? That is where the power is. So my girlfriend, Laura Tapper, who she is, has a show called Women of Power. And she had me as a guest speaker. And I was on it on July 4th. And if you want to see the show, I put the link down below in here. If you scroll down on the YouTube, there's a whole bunch of information and you'll see the show. And it was an hour-long show. And Laura is a reverend and actually has her doctorate in New Thought and Science of Mind. That's me. I went to visit her in London. She lives in England. That's so cool. So that's us together just a month ago in England. She had me on her show, and it's about powerful women. And she said, Lindsay, I really want to get to know you. How did you get to where you're at? And a lot of you all know that I used to be educational therapist. I was a teacher in special ed. I was a principal, and then I became the head director. Then I went in teaching mindfulness. I've been in corporate. I've law firms, all these different places, JPL, real estate agents. And then I do all this coaching. She's like, how did you do that? And I thought about it. Well, I manifested it, of course. And that's a lot what Science of Mind is about. And New Thought is like what you think about, you bring about, right? What you think about, you bring about. But that doesn't always work. people are like, I think about things all the time, and I don't think I'm bringing them about. Well, you have to realize what you think about. If you're thinking worry or anxiety or doubts, if all that you bring about too. The law of manifestation is always happening. Is always happening. And so you have to, that's why I'm priming your mind in hearts and good and love and prosperity and abundance and all the spiritual higher self and knowing your authentic self and hearing your God. You need to get yourself in that to bring that subconscious mind from the connection of the mind to the heart together. But we often have this chatter mind. So you say you can do that during meditation. You can do that when you're consciously thinking about it. But when you're unconsciously thinking about it, you slip into those old habits. And this is why I wanted to talk about Buddhism. It made me realize that when I started Science of Mind 24 years ago, I know exactly when I saw it. And I talk about how I found Science of Mind with the talk with Lars, if you want to hear about that. In the exact same summer, I found Buddhism, and I talk about that too in that talk. And one real quick thing about Buddhism is I was talking to my uncle on the phone. He's on the East Coast, and I was telling him what my belief system was. And I knew nothing about Science of Mind, and I knew nothing about Buddhism. I just was a spiritual being. And he said, "It sounds like you really believe in Buddhism." And I said, "Buddhism? What are you talking about? I don't believe in." You're not hearing me at all. I am not praying to some fat man. I mean, this is the most ridiculous thing I've heard. And he said, no, Lindsay, Buddhism is much more of a philosophy. And it's not, and the Buddha was not a god. He was a man who became enlightened. And then he started to teach other people how to themselves to be enlightened. And that we all have the Buddha nature. People might say, call it in Christianity, the Christ consciousness. It's inside of ourselves. So the Buddha wasn't saying that he was going to give you anything. You didn't pray to the Buddha. The Buddha was priming your mind, reminding you to be your higher self, and that it's all inside of you right now. Now, what does that sound like? Science of Mind, New Thought, right? The Secret, all those things, right? So you mean it's all in me? And then I said to him, well, how do I find a Buddhist teacher? I mean, to me, that just seemed, I didn't want to study the culturalism of Buddhism. You know, there's many different sects and there's a lot of culture that comes into it. And that's all beautiful, but that's not my culture. And I wanted to find the philosophy of Buddhism, the fundamentals of Buddhism. He said, I know you're going to hate what I'm going to say, but the teacher will come when you're ready. I was like, ah. But the next day, the absolute next day, I got the newspaper. I opened it up. This is in 1999. I know that because it was the year my son was born. In the summer of 1999, opened it up, and there was an article written by Reverend Glenn Hughes, who is a Dharma teacher in Thousand Oaks. And I read it, and he said it was about Buddhism. A Dharma teacher is a Buddhist teacher. It is not a monk. It's someone who has studied and teaches Buddhism. And I was like, wow, that's it. And he had a phone number. So I called him up and I said, you don't know me, but I want to learn Buddhism, but I only can do it on Sunday afternoons at 4. And he laughed. He's like, okay, lady, who are you? And then he said, well, let me think about it. So he called me back the next day. He said, okay, the classes start Sunday afternoons at 4. And I was in. And to this day, I still learn and respect Reverend Glenn Hughes, who is 96 years old and still teaching. And a lot of you have seen in my past Reverend Kusala, who is a Buddhist monk, and he's down in LA in Koreatown in an international meditation center. And I met him through Reverend Kusala I met through Reverend Glenn because they had the same teacher. But Kusala decided to be ordained as a monk, and Reverend Glenn decided to just be a Dharma teacher. Not just, but he did not take the vows of a monk. And so they're friends, and they've known each other, and that's how I met. So what I'm going to do is the reason why I'm telling you my history of my Buddhism is because I realize science of mind and new thought, they're all out there. It's all true to me. It all rings really true. And I manifest it all the time. But Buddhism gives me the structure of knowing the recipe on how to live my daily life in lists. And that's what the Buddhist philosophy is, all these lists. It's lists. Well, let me tell you, lists work for me. They really work for me. So what I'm going to teach you now in the next 15 minutes is some real basic Buddhism. And I know I'm going to go pretty fast, but there's tons of books on it, and maybe we'll dive into it deeper in another PIP. But I want to give you the overview and see how this resonates so much like science of mind and new thought. So I'm going to start with the triple gem, or the three refuge. So in Buddhism, they say there's the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. That is the triple gem. So the Buddha, of course, was the man himself that we hear about, but there's been many Buddhists because there's been many enlightened people. So when they're talking about the Buddha is inside of you. Okay, the Buddha nature, that in universal energy that I call God. In Buddhism, they don't call it God, but it's that Buddha nature in you. Okay, the Dharma is the teaching. And that's what I'm going to talk about, the lists, the teaching. So like we read Ernest Holmes or Emmett Fox or all these, all these wonderful teachers. You want to go to teachers. You want to learn from teachers. You want to get the knowledge. You have to get the knowledge. If not, you're ignorant. Okay. So you have inside of you the Buddha. Then you have all this Dharma, all this teaching. And that's why you come in to watch talks like this. You're getting the teaching. And then you have the Sangha, and that's the group. And we know we're as good as our friends. So look around yourself. The Sangha is your sacred people that you can be vulnerable with, that you can explore with, that you can learn how to meditate with, that you can discuss things. They're all different teachers. Some of my best teachers are like my ex-husband, right? Even things like my dyslexia, how to deal with my dyslexia is part of my teacher. A huge teacher in my life to learn how not to be frustrated is because of my dyslexia. So you can see all these teachers. People on New Thought Media Network can be a teacher, but they're also part of your Sangha because you all teach me all the time. Let me just come over here. Oh, good. Fiona's here from Geneva. I'm so glad that you are watching. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So I want to go on and then say, all right, so let's get some more basic Buddhism. The Four Noble Truths. Okay. The truth of suffering is number one. Finding cause of suffering. Number two is the solution to suffering. And number three. And number four is the implementation of right action. Now you're like, whoa, Lindsay, what the world are you talking about? I just wanted to show you that. It'll be easier if I show you it this way. Let me put up my banner. The Buddha sat underneath the Bodhi tree, and he meditated, and he said he was going to meditate until he found the answer. And he said, this is the answer, guys. This is it. This is the primal answer. That number one, there's the four noble truths. Number one, there's suffering everywhere. Can anybody point to someone who hasn't had suffering? Pain. I mean, they call it dukkha. So it gets lost in translation. So I don't want you to get attached to the word suffering, but pain, discomfort, whatever it is. As soon as you come out of the womb, it's cold, you're hungry, people are poking at you, it begins. And then when you're going into the grave, your body is deteriorating, you might have arthritis, whatever it is, you can't drive anymore. So we have this throughout our whole life. That is the experience of humans. It's the experience. Animals have suffering too, but it's human experiences. We have suffering. So stop thinking that you don't. Stop thinking. Even the Dalai Lama can say, yes, they're suffering the world. Look what happened to Tibet. Look what happened to his friends. You know, one of his best friends, Archbishop Tutu, he died of colon cancer. Prostate, I don't know, some kind of cancer. Anyway, these are people who are close to him. So everyone has it. Number 2 in the Four Noble Truths is the reason why we have some suffering is because we want it to be different. It's this wanting. We either want more of something or we want something to go away. But we want things to change the way we want them to change. Now, I want you to remember the Buddha came up with these lists 2,500 years before Christ was born, way before psychology was done, way before any of this was done. He just meditated. And if you find a lot of people who meditate, they come up with this. This is the truth. I want it to be different. I want to be healthy. I want to be skinnier. I want to have more money. I want my kids to call me more. Right? I don't want COVID. I don't want the flu. So you see how we're grasping for things we want and we're repelling things that we don't want. And that causes us suffering. That's why I'm reading this great book I always recommend, Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. She's talking about handling, you have to accept the way life is, mindfulness, be in the present moment. Don't push or pull, be in the middle path. And that's what the Buddha said. Get there in the middle path and sit with what is for real. Number 3 is that there is an end to suffering. Now, there isn't an end to pain. You're still born and you still die. You still can break your leg. But there is a recipe that we don't have to suffer so much. We don't have to suffer so much. And that's the 4th noble truth. The 4th noble truth is there's a recipe and he tells you what it is. Okay, so let's get to the recipe. Ready? It's called the 8-fold path. I have a picture of it. Let me see, I'll show you. I'll say right now. See, the 8-fold path. And these are 8 things. Remember, I told you Buddhism is a list. There's lists. So we have the 4 noble truths, and the 4th noble truth is the 8-fold path. And I'm going to explain very basically what the 8-fold path is. But this is why I manifest and can keep myself aligned, because I know the truth of the subconscious mind. I know that I need to be able to manifest what I want, not what I don't want, right? But I need to be doing it in a balanced, accepting, mindful way. So this is how I do it. Number 1. All right, let me just say this is 1 through 8, but it's not that they're listed in importance. So I don't want you to get lost in it. If you actually see that wheel and it has 8 spokes, that's a representation of Buddhism. And the 8 spokes represent each part of this 8-fold path. Okay, so that's why there's a wheel looking thing in Buddhism as a representation. Anyway, right view. Now, right view, don't get lost in the thing. He's not saying right or wrong. He's just saying that you have to understand the real view, the truth of the view of the world. And if you're going to wonder what the truth of the world is, what he's really saying is you need to understand this. Right view. The world has suffering. Yes, we all suffer because we're attached to wanting things to be different. There is a way to stop suffering. And if you follow the 8-fold path, that will help you end the suffering and become enlightened. Okay, so that's the right view. That's the view he's talking about. All right, no, go this one again. Number 2, right intention. Very important. The Buddha said, listen, you can have right action. You can do lots of things. But if you're doing it with the intention of greed, right? If you're doing it with the intention of greed or manipulation, something, or ego, it's not the right intention. You're not giving. If you give a present because you want something, then that's not the right intention. It's about karma. Karma is the energy you put out, right? It's the energy you get back. So now we'll go back to New Thought New thought is saying what you think about, you bring about. So what you do and how you think will reflect back on you. So you can do nice, kind things, but if you're doing it to manipulate, then you're actually sending that out, the manipulation, and that will come back to you. So he goes, you've got to study. The Buddha said you have to study what is your intentions behind it. If you're helping people all the time, are you doing it because you want to be helpful? Or are you doing it because you're a people pleaser and you need validation? Right? Big stuff. Psychology right here. Okay, right speech. How do you speak? Now, how I speak out to the world is very, very important. But let me tell you, how you speak to the world shows you exactly how you speak to yourself. So it's not only when you put out, your words have power. Please own them. Please own them. But remember, your words in your mind have the biggest power because they're your thoughts. Once again, new thought. What you think about, you bring about. So if you're speaking it, you're thinking it. Who's your best friend? Is it you? You should be your best friend. You should be your best cheerleader. It doesn't mean that you don't ever have an angry thought. But when you have the thought, you can own it. You can be in it. You can change your intention from anger to learning. And then you can accept it, right? And then you can move forward from your higher self. Okay, right action, same idea. Means that what are you doing? Are you walking the talk? Please tell me, are you walking the talk? Lots of talk out there. But that's why people say, I do affirmations all the time. And I did my vision board and nothing happened. I'm like, because it's not about the vision board and the affirmations. It's about the belief system that you actually take on every single day. And you keep working it and you keep knowing it. You know it's true. You know it. And you make actions that reflect that. You have speech that reflects that. Okay, right livelihood. Now, this is a big one because we don't really think in the United States of America, money tends to rule first, not right livelihood. So if you can make a lot of money and it's legal, people do it. And I have nothing against people who are bartenders. I think I'd be a great bartender. I really think I'd be a fabulous bartender. Fabulous, because I love people and I could talk to them and I'm friendly and all this kind of stuff. But I personally couldn't be a bartender because I wouldn't want to give people alcohol so they would become less conscious. That is my karma. That is my thinking about it. Now, if I had no other job and I need to feed my kids, maybe I wouldn't be the best bartender because I would start cutting people off. I'd be like, that's enough. That's enough. Anyway, but the drug running, singing songs about murder, things like that, I don't really think that would be considered right livelihood. But let me tell you, if you're picking up our waste or trash collectors, I love those men and women who are doing that. That's right livelihood. That's awesome. Gardeners, fabulous. Farmers, terrific. Plumbers, outstanding. Teachers, fabulous, fabulous. We need accountants and people to help us with our taxes and stuff. So just remember, what is your intention in your job? That's where you can judge if it's right livelihood. And I say judge lightly, but see, is it right livelihood? Why are you doing your job? What does it feel like? If you're doing your job to help other people and it's part of your passion, amen, brother and sister, go for it. Right? And that goes into right effort. So people say, well, I did all the work, but did you really put effort into it? Right? Are you putting your best foot forward? And so like in the 4 Agreements, that book that I love so much, it says, do your best. What he means is right efforts. Exact same one. It doesn't mean that you're doing your best compared to yesterday. If you're sick today, you do the best in the present moment you can. And that's what right effort is. the best you can do. If you're grieving, then you do the best you can do, and you can cry your eyes out. There's nothing. You can even be angry if you're in a situation, but you do it the best you can, and you check with right view, right intention, right? And you keep going and keep checking with that, and that brings you to right mindfulness, right mindfulness. So right mindfulness, be in the present moment without judgment, to be able to be the observer. He said, practice being the observer. And the last one is right concentration. And he said, you know what? You need to know how to focus. You need to know how to have attention. Attention. You want to have right intention, but you want to also have attention. What are you looking at? What is your conscious? What are you feeding yourself? And how you build up right concentration, the Buddha said, was through practice of meditation. And there's many kinds of meditations. All right. So I actually just did a little bit, the two lists, the Four Noble Truths and then the path. And the reason why I told you the Eightfold Path is because I believe and know that I can handle situations. And the reason why I can handle it is because I do practice the Eightfold Path with the understanding that all these are like a checklist. When I'm off, when I feel out of balance, I'm like, well, check in with myself. Am I having right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration? Am I doing my best I can in those areas? And if the answer is yes, then I just keep going. But if the answer is no, and I realize I need to take a knee and drink some water and get myself back into line again so I can be my very best. So I can be my very best in the present moment, because I know what I think about, I bring about. And I want to manifest the most beautiful, loving, kind, trusting the universe, connected to God and my authentic self. That is what I want in my life. And if I check in to the Eightfold Path, to that list, and say, am I doing those things? Then I'm doing okay. All right. So you know what? I have a part 2, and I'm going to do a part 2 next week on this is basic 101 Buddhism, but it's so much fun, and I ran out of time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, New Thought Media Network, for allowing me to have this opportunity. Share this, like it. I just really love doing this. It is my passion. So instead of being a bartender of alcohol, I like to be a bartender of words and love and energy. All the blessings to you all. Remember to donate to New Thought Media Network. It's a nonprofit organization that's helping us all. Remember that you can see the show I did with Laura. The link to her YouTube video recording is there. Blessings. Have a wonderful week. Until next week, God bless you, and may you all manifest peace, love, kindness, and truth.